Luna Rodriguez stared at the $10 bill in her wallet like it was both her lifeline and her worst enemy. She sat on the edge of her small apartment's couch, surrounded by bills that seemed to multiply every time she looked away. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains, casting long shadows across the stack of overdue notices on her coffee table. 28 years old, and this was her life. A single mother working part-time as a nurse at a local clinic, trying to make ends meet in a world that seemed designed to keep her struggling. Her 6-year-old daughter, Sophia, was still asleep in the bedroom they shared, blissfully unaware that Mommy had spent another night calculating and recalculating their finances. Luna picked up each bill one by one, her fingers trembling slightly. Rent paid, electric bill paid, water bill paid, daycare for Sophia paid. The numbers danced in her head like cruel arithmetic that never worked in her favor. After covering all the essentials, she was left with exactly $10 until her next paycheck arrived in 3 days. 3 days might as well have been 3 months. She walked to the tiny kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Half a loaf of bread, some peanut butter, a few eggs, and a small container of milk that would expire tomorrow. Luna did quick math in her head. If she was careful, really careful, she could make this food stretch for Sophia. As for herself, well, she had gotten good at skipping meals when money was tight. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her days taking care of other people's health while barely being able to afford to take care of her own family's basic needs. Every day at the clinic, she saw people who could afford the best care, people who never had to choose between buying groceries and paying for their child's school supplies. Luna's phone buzzed on the counter, a text message that made her heart skip a beat. It was from Dr. Patterson at Metro General Hospital, confirming her interview appointment for later that morning. This job could change everything. Better pay, full-time hours, health insurance for both her and Sophia. It was the opportunity she had been praying for. But getting to the interview meant taking the train across town, which would cost her $4 round trip. That would leave her with only $6 for the next 3 days. $6 to feed her daughter and herself until Friday's paycheck arrived. Luna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, mija. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. She looked at the clock. Sophia would wake up in an hour, and Luna needed to get her ready for daycare before heading to the interview. The daycare was run by Mrs. Garcia, an elderly woman who had been incredibly patient about late payments. Too patient, really. Luna felt guilty every time she dropped Sophia off, knowing she was behind on payments but unable to catch up. Getting dressed for the interview was another challenge. Luna's professional wardrobe consisted of exactly 2 outfits that weren't scrubs. She chose the navy blue dress that she had bought from a thrift store 2 years ago. It was still in good condition, though it had definitely seen better days. She paired it with her only pair of dress shoes, which had a small scuff on the toe that she had tried to cover with a black marker. As she got ready, Luna thought about how different her life had been just a few years ago. Before Sophia's father had left, before the medical bills from Sophia's premature birth had piled up, before everything had fallen apart, she used to have dreams beyond just surviving paycheck to paycheck. She wanted to become a registered nurse, maybe even a nurse practitioner someday. Those dreams felt impossibly far away now. Sophia stirred in the bedroom and Luna quickly finished getting ready. Her daughter was the reason she kept fighting, kept pushing forward even when everything seemed hopeless. That little girl with bright brown eyes and an infectious laugh was worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of worry. "Mommy," Sophia's sleepy voice called from the bedroom. "Good morning, baby," Luna said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Ready for another day at Miss Garcia's?" Sophia nodded, rubbing her eyes. She was such a good kid, never complaining when they had cereal for dinner again or when Mommy said they couldn't afford new toys. She seemed to understand, even at 6 years old, that money was something they didn't have much of. Getting Sophia ready was the usual morning routine. Breakfast was scrambled eggs and toast, which Sophia ate happily while Luna sipped black coffee and tried to calm her nerves about the interview. She helped Sophia brush her teeth and get dressed in her favorite purple shirt and jeans. The walk to daycare was 10 blocks, but Luna didn't mind. It saved money on bus fare, and Sophia enjoyed pointing out different flowers and birds they saw along the way. This morning, Sophia was especially chatty. talking about a drawing she wanted to make for her teacher. "Mommy, why do you look nervous?" Sophia asked as they reached Mrs. Garcia's house. "I have an important meeting today, sweetheart. Mommy might get a new job that will help us have a little more money." Sophia squeezed Luna's hand. "I hope you get it, Mommy. Then maybe we can buy the good cereal again." Luna's heart nearly broke. The good cereal? Something so simple that most families never had to think about. She knelt down and hugged Sophia tightly. "I love you so much, baby. Be good for Mrs. Garcia, okay?" After dropping off Sophia, Luna walked to the train station. Each step felt heavier as the reality of her situation sank in. $4 for train fare meant $6 left. $6 for 3 days. She could make it work. She had to make it work. The train station was buzzing with morning commuters. Business people in expensive suits, students with backpacks, tourists with cameras. Everyone seemed to have somewhere important to go, and everyone seemed to belong in this world better than she did. Luna stood in line at the ticket machine, clutching her $10 bill. Behind her, people chatted casually about their plans, their jobs, their weekend getaways. She felt invisible among them, just another face in the crowd, another person trying to get somewhere. When it was her turn, she fed the machine her precious $10 bill and selected her destination. The machine made mechanical sounds as it processed her payment and then dispensed her ticket along with $6 in change. $6. For the next 3 days, Luna looked at the coins and bills in her palm. This was it. This was all that stood between her family and complete financial disaster. But she couldn't think about that now. She had an interview to get to, a future to fight for, and a daughter who was counting on her to make their lives better. She walked toward the platform, ticket in hand, carrying all her hopes and fears with her toward what might be the most important train ride of her life. The train platform was crowded with the usual morning rush. Luna clutched her ticket and the remaining $6 in her pocket, feeling the weight of every coin. She found a spot near a bench and checked her phone for the time. Her interview was in 45 minutes, which gave her just enough time to get across town if the train arrived on schedule. Around her, people moved with the confidence of those who didn't have to worry about their next meal. A woman in a designer coat talked loudly on her phone about weekend plans at some expensive resort. A group of college students laughed about their upcoming spring break trip. Luna felt like she was watching life through a window, seeing a world she couldn't quite reach. That's when she noticed him. An elderly man, probably in his 70s, was sitting alone on a bench about 20 feet away. Everything about him seemed wrong for someone his age trying to navigate a busy train station. His silver hair was disheveled, his expensive-looking jacket was wrinkled, and his hands were shaking as he frantically searched through his pockets over and over again. Luna had always been good at reading people. It came with being a nurse, she supposed. You learned to notice when someone was in distress, when they needed help but were too proud or scared to ask for it. This man was definitely in distress. She watched as he pulled out every pocket of his jacket, then checked his pants pockets, then went back to his jacket pockets again. His movements were becoming more frantic with each search. He kept looking around the station with confusion and growing panic in his eyes. Other commuters walked past him without a second glance. Everyone was too busy, too focused on their own destinations, too absorbed in their phones to notice an old man who was clearly struggling. Luna took a step closer, pretending to check the departure board while keeping an eye on the man. She could see him better now. His clothes were definitely expensive, the kind of quality that lasted for years. His shoes were leather and well-maintained. This wasn't someone who usually found himself in difficult situations. A security guard walked by, and the elderly man stood up quickly, almost stumbling in his haste. "Excuse me, officer," the man said, his voice carrying a slight accent that Luna couldn't quite place. "I'm having a bit of trouble." The security guard stopped, looking tired already, even though it was still early morning. "What's the problem?" "My wallet," the man said, his voice shaking slightly. "I think someone took it, or maybe I dropped it. I don't know. I had it when I arrived, I'm sure I did, but now it's gone." Luna moved a little closer, pretending to read the safety notices posted on the wall nearby. "When did you last see it?" the security guard asked, though his tone suggested he was already mentally checking out of this conversation. I'm not sure. I've been here for maybe 30 minutes trying to figure out where to buy a ticket. I need to get home to my wife. She's She's not well, and I promised I'd be back by lunch. The old man's voice cracked slightly when he mentioned his wife, and Luna felt her heart tighten. She recognized that sound. The same desperate worry she heard in her own voice when Sophia was sick and she couldn't afford to take time off work. "Look, sir," the security guard said, "I'm sorry about your wallet, but there's not much I can do. You could file a report at the police station, but that's about it. Maybe you have family you can call?" "I need $8 for a ticket home," the man said quietly. "Just $8? I know this sounds strange, but I can pay it back. I have money, just not here, not now." The security guard's expression didn't change. Luna could see he'd probably heard similar stories dozens of times before. "Sir, I can't give you money. It's against policy. Maybe try asking at the information desk or see if there's someone you can call." With that, the security guard walked away, leaving the elderly man standing alone again. The old man sat back down heavily on the bench, putting his head in his hands. Luna could see his shoulders shaking slightly. Around them, life continued at its usual pace. People bought tickets, checked their phones, talked and laughed and lived their lives. But this one man was trapped in his own little crisis, invisible to everyone else. Luna looked down at the $6 in her hand. $6 that had to last 3 days. $6 that meant the difference between eating and not eating. $6 that she absolutely could not afford to give away. But $8 was all he needed. Just $8 to get home to his sick wife. She thought about Sophia, probably playing with the other kids at daycare right now. What if something happened to Sophia and Luna was stuck somewhere without money to get home? What if she was the one sitting on a bench, desperate and scared, watching strangers walk by without even seeing her? Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory again. "When God puts someone in your path who needs help, it's not an accident, Mija. It's a test of who you really are." Luna had failed a lot of tests in her life. She'd failed at keeping Sophia's father around. She'd failed at getting her nursing degree before life got in the way. She'd failed at providing the kind of life she wanted for her daughter. But maybe this was one test she didn't have to fail. She walked slowly toward the bench where the man was sitting. With each step, her rational mind screamed at her to turn around. $6 for 3 days. $6. How was she going to explain to Sophia that there was no dinner because Mommy gave their grocery money to a stranger? But her feet kept moving. The man looked up as she approached. His eyes were red, and she could see the exhaustion and worry written across his face. Up close, he looked even more fragile, more lost. "Excuse me," Luna said softly, her voice barely audible over the noise of the station. "I couldn't help but overhear. You need $8 for a train ticket?" The man nodded, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry, this doesn't usually happen to me. I'm not the kind of person who asks strangers for money." "I know," Luna said, and she did know. She could see it in his posture, in the way he spoke, in the quality of his clothes. This was someone who was used to being the one helping others, not the one needing help. "I have $10, she said, pulling the bill from her pocket before she could change her mind. It's actually all I have until Friday, but you need to get home to your wife." The man stared at the money in her hand like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. "I can't take your money. You said it's all you have." "Sometimes we have to help each other," Luna said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. "That's how the world is supposed to work." The elderly man's eyes filled with tears, and Luna felt her own eyes getting watery too. She was really doing this. She was really giving away her last $10 to a complete stranger. And somehow, despite the fear and the uncertainty about how she'd manage the next 3 days, it felt like the rightest thing she'd ever done. The elderly man stared at the $10 bill in Luna's outstretched hand for what felt like forever. She could see him fighting with himself, his pride battling against his desperate need to get home. His hands trembled slightly as he looked between her face and the money. "Miss, I can't take this from you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You said this is all you have. You have your own problems to worry about." Luna's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to put the money back in her pocket and walk away. But something deeper, something that her grandmother had planted in her years ago, kept her hand steady. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Vincent," he replied, surprised by the question. "Vincent Chen. I'm Luna," she said with a small smile. "And Vincent, sometimes we're put in each other's path for a reason. You need to get home to your wife, and I have exactly what you need. That's not a coincidence." Vincent's eyes filled with tears again. You don't understand. I'm not usually the kind of person who needs help. I'm supposed to be the one helping others. This is very hard for me. Luna could hear the shame in his voice, and it broke her heart. She recognized it because she felt it herself every time she had to ask for an extension on a bill, or when Sophia's teacher gave her that pitying look during parent-teacher conferences. There's no shame in needing help, Luna said softly. We all need help sometimes. The only shame would be in not accepting it when it's offered with kindness. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her. Luna could see him taking in her worn dress, her carefully hidden exhaustion, the way she held herself like someone who was used to carrying heavy burdens. You're struggling too, aren't you? He asked quietly. Luna nodded, not trusting her voice for a moment. But that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that your wife is waiting for you. That seemed to break something in Vincent's resistance. He reached out slowly and took the $10 bill from her hand. I will pay you back, he said firmly. I promise you I will find a way to pay you back. Don't worry about that now, Luna said. Let's just get you home. They walked together toward the ticket machine. Vincent moved slowly, like someone who wasn't quite steady on his feet anymore. Luna noticed he favored his left leg slightly and wondered if he had been standing at the station longer than she'd realized. Have you been here long? She asked as they waited in line. About an hour, Vincent admitted. I got confused about which platform. Then I couldn't figure out the ticket machine, and then... He gestured helplessly. I realized my wallet was gone. Luna nodded sympathetically. The train station could be overwhelming even when you weren't dealing with a crisis. Where do you need to go? Riverside District, Vincent said. It's about 30 minutes from here. My wife Helen, she's in a memory care facility there. Today is one of her bad days, and I promised I'd be there for lunch. She gets upset when I'm not there when I say I'll be. Luna's throat tightened. Memory care. That explained the desperation in his voice, the way he kept checking his watch. She'd seen families dealing with dementia at the clinic where she worked. She knew how precious those moments of clarity could be. How important it was to keep promises to someone whose world was already so confusing. How long has she been there? Luna asked gently as they reached the ticket machine. 6 months, Vincent said, his voice barely above a whisper. We were married 42 years. 42 years, and now some days she doesn't even remember my name. Luna helped him navigate the ticket machine, showing him which buttons to press. Her own problem suddenly felt smaller in the face of his pain. At least when she went home to Sophia, her daughter recognized her, hugged her, called her mommy. The machine dispensed Vincent's ticket and gave him $2 in change, which he immediately tried to hand back to Luna. Keep it, she said, waving him away. You might need it for something else. They found seats on a bench to wait for their respective trains. Luna's interview train would arrive in 15 minutes, Vincent's in 10. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the busy station around them. Do you have children? Vincent asked suddenly. Luna's face lit up despite her worries. A daughter, Sophia. She's 6 years old and the most amazing kid in the world. 6 is a wonderful age, Vincent said with his first real smile since she'd met him. Old enough to have real conversations, young enough to still believe in magic. Exactly, Luna laughed. Last week she told me she wants to be a doctor so she can help sick people feel better. Just like her mommy, she said. You're a doctor? A nurse, Luna corrected. Well, a nurse's aide right now. I work at a clinic part-time. I'm actually on my way to a job interview for a better position at a hospital. Vincent's expression grew serious. That's why you need that money. For after your interview for your daughter. Luna shrugged, trying to look more casual than she felt. We'll figure it out. We always do. You shouldn't have to just figure it out, Vincent said firmly. Someone like you working in healthcare, taking care of people, raising a daughter on your own. You shouldn't have to choose between helping a stranger and feeding your family. There was something in his tone that surprised Luna. Not pity, but genuine anger at the unfairness of it all. Most people, when they learned about her situation, either offered sympathy that felt empty, or looked at her like she must have done something wrong to end up struggling. Life isn't always fair, Luna said simply. But that doesn't mean we stop being kind to each other. Vincent stared at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. How old are you, Luna? 28. 28 years old, and you already understand something that took me 73 years to learn. What's that? That the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they're willing to give. Luna felt her cheeks warm. I think your wife probably taught you that long before I came along. Vincent's eyes grew distant. Helen was always the generous one. She volunteered at soup kitchens, organized charity drives, never let me ignore people who needed help. She used to say that kindness was the only thing that really mattered in the end. She sounds like an amazing woman. She is, Vincent said firmly, as if insisting on the present tense could somehow bring back the woman he'd married. Even now, even with the dementia, sometimes I see flashes of who she used to be. Those moments, they're everything. An announcement echoed through the station about Vincent's train approaching the platform. He stood up slowly, gripping the bench for support. Luna, he said, I need your contact information. I meant what I said about paying you back. Luna hesitated. She didn't have a business card or anything fancy. I don't really have a phone number? An address, anything? Luna pulled out her phone and recited her number while Vincent carefully entered it into his own phone, which looked much newer and more expensive than hers. Promise me you'll answer when I call, he said, looking directly into her eyes. I promise, Luna said, though she wondered what this kind old man could possibly do to help her situation. Vincent's train pulled into the station with a rush of wind and noise. He turned to go, then stopped and came back to Luna. Thank you, he said, and before she could respond, he pulled her into a gentle hug. You saved me today. I won't forget it. As Vincent walked toward his train, Luna sat back down on the bench. She watched him disappear into the crowd of boarding passengers. And for the first time since giving away her last $10, she wondered if she'd ever see him again. 3 weeks had passed since that morning at the train station, and Luna had almost convinced herself it had been a dream. Almost. The memory of Vincent's grateful hug and his promise to call kept creeping back into her thoughts at odd moments, usually when she was counting change at the grocery store or stretching a meal to last an extra day. Life had settled back into its familiar rhythm of struggle. The job interview had gone well, better than well, actually, but she was still waiting to hear back. The hiring manager had said they'd make a decision within 2 weeks, and those 2 weeks had stretched into 3 with no word. Luna tried not to think about what that probably meant. She was sitting on her small couch helping Sophia with her homework while balancing her checkbook when her phone rang. It was a Tuesday evening just after dinner, and the caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. Normally she wouldn't answer unknown numbers, too many bill collectors had her number, but something made her pick up. Hello? She answered cautiously. Good evening, is this Luna Rodriguez? The voice was professional, polite, with just a hint of an accent that sounded familiar but that she couldn't quite place. Yes, this is Luna. Who's calling? My name is Patricia Wong and I'm calling on behalf of Vincent Chen. You met him at the downtown train station about 3 weeks ago. Luna's heart skipped a beat. Vincent. She had wondered so many times if he'd made it home safely to his wife, if Helen had recognized him that day, if they'd had a good visit together. Yes. I remember Vincent, Luna said, her voice softening. Is he all right? Is his wife okay? Mr. Chen is fine, thank you for asking. I'm his personal assistant and he's been quite eager to speak with you. He asked me to reach out and see if you'd be available for a conversation with him tomorrow afternoon. Personal assistant? Luna blinked in confusion. I'm sorry, did you say personal assistant? Yes, that's correct. Would you be available to meet with Mr. Chen tomorrow around 2 o'clock? He'd be happy to come to wherever is convenient for you. Luna's mind was racing. Personal assistant? The Vincent she'd met had seemed like a sweet elderly man who was confused and lost, not someone who had assistants calling people on his behalf. I work at the clinic tomorrow, but I get off at 1. I could meet somewhere after that. But can I ask? Why does Vincent want to see me? Mr. Chen will explain everything when you meet, Patricia said diplomatically. He was very specific that he wanted to speak with you personally. Could I suggest meeting at the coffee shop on 5th Street near the downtown hospital? It's called Brew and Bean. Luna knew the place. It was one of those trendy coffee shops where drinks cost more than she usually spent on lunch. I suppose that would be fine. But are you sure this is about the Vincent I met? The elderly gentleman who needed train fare? I'm quite certain, Patricia said, and Luna could hear the smile in her voice. Mr. Chen described you perfectly. A young nurse with kind eyes who gave him her last $10 without hesitation. After hanging up, Luna sat staring at her phone for a long time. Sophia looked up from her coloring book, noticing her mother's confused expression. "Who was that, Mommy?" "I'm not sure, baby. Someone wants to meet me tomorrow about, well, I'm not really sure about what." The next day crawled by at the clinic. Luna found herself checking the clock every few minutes, her mind spinning with possibilities. Maybe Vincent wanted to pay her back in person. Maybe he wanted to thank her again. Maybe his wife had passed away and he was letting her know. The uncertainty made her stomach twist with anxiety. At exactly 2 o'clock, Luna walked into Brew and Bean, feeling severely underdressed in her scrubs among the business people with their laptops and expensive suits. She looked around nervously until she spotted a familiar figure sitting at a corner table. But this Vincent looked completely different from the confused, disheveled man she'd met at the train station. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His suit probably cost more than Luna made in a month. And he was speaking quietly into a phone while reviewing documents spread across the table. When he looked up and saw her, his entire face transformed with a warm smile. "Luna," he said, standing up immediately and ending his phone call. "Thank you so much for coming." She walked over slowly, still trying to reconcile this polished businessman with the lost elderly man from 3 weeks ago. "Vincent, you look different." He laughed, and that laugh was exactly the same as she remembered.
"I imagine I do."
"Please sit down. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea? Something to eat?" Luna sat down across from him, her mind still reeling. "Coffee would be nice, thank you. But Vincent, I have to ask. What's going on? Your assistant called me, and you're wearing a suit that probably costs more than my car, and I'm just really confused." Vincent signaled to the waitress and ordered 2 coffees before turning back to Luna with a serious expression. "I owe you an explanation, and an apology for not being completely honest about who I am." "Who are you?" Luna asked quietly. "My name is Vincent Chen, and I'm the founder and CEO of Chen Medical Industries. We're one of the largest medical supply companies on the West Coast." Luna stared at him, her mouth slightly open. "You're what?" "I know it's a shock. The day we met, I wasn't exactly myself. I had been visiting Helen at the memory care facility, and it had been a particularly difficult visit. She didn't recognize me at all that day. For the first time in our marriage, she looked at me like I was a stranger." Vincent's voice grew thick with emotion, and Luna could see the same pain in his eyes that she'd noticed that day at the station. "I was so devastated when I left that I forgot my wallet in the car. I was walking around the station in a daze, completely lost in my own grief. When I realized I didn't have my wallet, I panicked. I needed to get home, but more than that, I think I needed to feel like myself again." "So you really did need the money," Luna said softly. "I did, but more than the money, I needed someone to see me as a human being who was hurting, not as Vincent Chen, the CEO. And you did that. You looked at a confused old man and saw someone worth helping." Luna was quiet for a moment, processing everything he'd told her. "But why didn't you tell me who you were?" "Because it wouldn't have mattered to you, would it?" Vincent asked with a knowing smile. "You didn't help me because you thought I was wealthy or important. You helped me because you saw someone in need, and that's just who you are." The waitress brought their coffees, and Luna wrapped her hands around the warm mug, trying to steady herself. "I still can't believe this. You're really a CEO?" "I am. And Luna, what you did that day, it changed something in me. I've been successful in business for decades, but I'd forgotten what Helen always tried to teach me about the importance of simple human kindness." "You reminded me," Luna shook her head in amazement. "I just gave you $10. Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," Vincent said firmly. "They wouldn't have. I sat on that bench for over an hour, and dozens of people walked past me. You were the only one who stopped, the only one who cared enough to help. So what happens now?" Luna asked, still feeling like she was in some kind of dream. Vincent smiled, and Luna could see a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Now I get to return a favor. And Luna, I think you're going to like what I have in mind." Luna stared at Vincent across the small coffee shop table, her heart racing as she tried to process what he'd just said. The man who she'd given her last $10 to was not only wealthy, but he wanted to help her in return. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie rather than her real life. "Vincent, I appreciate the thought, I really do," Luna began carefully. "But I didn't help you expecting anything in return. I just did what felt right." "I know," Vincent said, leaning forward with intense sincerity. "That's exactly why I want to do this. Luna, In the 3 weeks since we met, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what you did. You gave me your last $10. Your last $10. Do you understand how extraordinary that is? Luna shifted uncomfortably in her chair. It wasn't extraordinary. It was just who you are, Vincent finished. And that's what makes it so special. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Luna, I've done some research about you. I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to understand your situation better. Research? Luna felt a flutter of anxiety. What kind of research? Nothing invasive, I promise. Just public records, your work history, that sort of thing. I learned that you've been working as a nurse's aide for 3 years while raising your daughter alone. I learned that you started studying to become a registered nurse but had to stop when Sophia was born prematurely, and the medical bills piled up. Luna's cheeks burned with embarrassment. Having her struggles laid out so matter-of-factly made her feel exposed and vulnerable. Vincent, I don't need your pity. This isn't pity, Vincent said firmly. This is recognition. You're exactly the kind of person the world needs more of, and the fact that you're struggling while lazy, selfish people live in luxury, it's not right. He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Luna, I want to offer you a full scholarship to complete your nursing degree at Pacific University. It's one of the best nursing programs in the state. Luna's coffee cup slipped slightly in her hands. What? The scholarship covers tuition, books, everything. You'd be able to study full-time and still have a work-study position at the university's medical center that pays enough to cover your living expenses. Vincent, that has to cost thousands of dollars. I can't accept something like that. $34,000 to be exact, Vincent said casually, as if he were discussing the weather, which for perspective is less than what I spend on business lunches in a year. Luna felt dizzy. $34,000. It was more money than she'd ever seen at one time, more than she made in an entire year working part-time at the clinic. But there's more, Vincent continued, and Luna's eyes widened in disbelief. More? Sophia. I understand she's 6 years old and extremely bright. I'd like to set up an education fund for her that will cover her schooling from now through college, including any special programs or activities she might want to pursue. Luna's hands started shaking. Vincent, stop. This is too much. I gave you $10. $10 doesn't deserve... It's not about the $10, Vincent interrupted gently. It's about who you are. Luna, my wife Helen, spent 40 years volunteering, helping people, making the world a little bit better wherever she could. Before the dementia took her away from me, she used to say that kindness was the only currency that really mattered. His voice grew thick with emotion. That day at the train station, I was losing myself in grief and anger. I was becoming bitter, wondering why good people like Helen suffer while cruel people prosper. And then you appeared, like an answer to a question I didn't even know I was asking. Luna wiped at her eyes, surprised to find tears there. She sounds like an amazing woman. She is, and she would have loved you. Vincent smiled softly. The day after we met, I visited Helen and told her about you. It was one of her good days, and she was so excited to hear the story. She said, Vincent, you have to help that girl. Someone that kind deserves to have her dreams come true. She really said that. She did. And then she said something else that I'll never forget. She said, our money doesn't mean anything if we don't use it to lift people up. So that's what I'm doing. Luna, I'm lifting you up because Helen would want me to, and because you deserve it. Luna sat in stunned silence, trying to absorb everything Vincent was telling her. A nursing degree, Sophia's education paid for. It was everything she'd ever dreamed of and more. There's one more thing, Vincent said, pulling out another document. Chen Medical Industries is opening a new family health center in your neighborhood next year. It's going to focus on providing quality health care to families who can't always afford it. I'd like you to consider working there as a nurse practitioner once you finish your advanced degree. Nurse practitioner? Luna whispered. That's what I always dreamed of becoming. I know. And you will be excellent at it. Vincent leaned back in his chair. Luna, this isn't charity. This is an investment in someone who has already proven that she puts others before herself. I believe you're going to go on to help hundreds, maybe thousands of people throughout your career. This is just me making sure you get the chance to do that. Luna looked down at the documents in front of her, the official letterheads and legal language that represented a completely different future for her and Sophia. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Vincent said simply. Say yes and let me give you what you gave me that day at the train station. What's that? Hope. Luna felt the tears coming again, but this time they were tears of joy, of relief, of overwhelming gratitude. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. Yes, I accept. Vincent's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen from him. Wonderful. Patricia, my assistant, will handle all the paperwork and enrollment details. You can start classes next semester if you'd like. They sat together for another hour, talking about the details, about Sophia, about Helen, about how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. When Luna finally left the coffee shop, she felt like she was floating. That evening, she sat Sophia down to explain that their lives were about to change in wonderful ways. Sophia listened with wide eyes as Luna told her about college and how Mommy was going to become the kind of nurse who could help people in even bigger ways. Does this mean we can buy the good cereal now? Sophia asked, and Luna laughed until her sides hurt. Yes, baby. We can buy all the good cereal you want. A year later, Luna was thriving in nursing school while Sophia attended an excellent private school where her love of learning flourished. But more importantly, Luna had started a small foundation that helped other single parents pursue healthcare careers, funded partly by Vincent but supported by dozens of other donors who believed in the mission. The foundation was named the Helen Chen Foundation for Healthcare Heroes, and its motto, suggested by Sophia, was simple. Sometimes $10 can change the world, because sometimes it really can.